Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are tuning in to another Nari edition of Ask Me Anything. My name is Ryan MacArthur. I'm one of the co-founders of Nari. I'm a career coach, resume writer, been doing this for about 12 years. Today, we're going to go through some questions I've received throughout the week. I do webinars for uh, lots of different folks in all sorts of different situations within the job market. And we often get lots of questions during these things. So I try to jot them down and then use this opportunity to go through them and share some good knowledge with you. Um, I should be in my other office today, but unfortunately, BT Internet got a few things mixed up and we had to reset up in the garage. So the lovely setting you see behind me isn't normally what's going on, but hey, I'm just a guy building a business in a garage, about as cliche as it can get. Uh, so what we'll do is I'm going to go through some of the questions I've pulled, but if you're watching and you've always wanted to ask a career coach a question, or you're just not sure about something and want to talk to a professional, feel free to drop a question or comment or anything within the comments section, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever we're broadcasting this from. I'll see the question and we'll respond to it live on air. So yeah, let's dive into it. So question number one, we've got James, who's based in Austin, Texas. He is a warehouse ops manager. James's question, is it actually worth applying if I only match about 70% of the job description? No pun intended, but 100%. Now, it's going to depend what that 70% encompasses, right? So what I train and coach people on, and same thing applies through Nari with how we try to help people navigate the job market, is we let our achievements guide our decisions regarding which roles we apply to. So the mindset people need to get in is stop thinking about experience and skills. Yes, these things are important, but more important are the accomplishments, the achievements, the things that you've done with that knowledge, skill set, expertise, and the outcomes that you have delivered. That's probably one of the biggest roadblocks for people is they don't focus on outcomes. And this can cause, wrong turns, having to backtrack throughout the entire job search life cycle. So what we normally do is we start with achievements. Okay, I've accomplished this here. What's that job description asking for? Because this comes down to how we read job descriptions. So for me, I'm not going to focus as much on the title, right? Titles are going to give me a guide to finding that role. But when I look at that job description, I want to try to determine what are the 2 or 3 or 4 main problems that you would be solving at that company. Do you have achievements that show you've solved the same or similar problem? If that's the case, it makes sense to apply, regardless if your experience only covers about 70% of it. If the achievements demonstrate that you can provide impact in that role, makes sense to target it. It's funny, it's usually, there's a big gender divide when it comes to looking at a role and making a decision on whether or not to apply. For most guys, they need to, in their mind, they need to do at least 50%, have at least 50% of that job description covered, right? Where you look at it, it's like, yeah, I know how to do most of that. I'll apply. For most women, it needs to be somewhere between 90 to 95%. And I think that kind of prohibits a lot of women from advancing or, taking that leap of faith into a new opportunity. Now, the job market is a bit unforgiving at the moment, but what I usually tell people is meet me in the middle, right? We're never going to be 100% match for a particular role. But at the same time, if our achievements are aligning with what that role is asking for, and it's around that kind of 70% mark that James mentioned, it makes sense to go for it. Now, that does not mean we just spray and pray, meaning send out as many resumes and applications as we can and hope for the best. That's a recipe for a lot of rejections. So instead, I would rather be much more targeted, much more strategic, much more deliberate with what I position on LinkedIn, how I structure the resume to make sure those achievements are easy to find, and then who I'm actually sending this thing out to. So, good question from James. Let's see here. We have Fatima from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. We do a lot of work with folks in Saudi, so always appreciate our clients out there. And Fatima is a HR coordinator. Question is, what's the single biggest thing that gets a resume rejected before a human ever reads it? Um, it's hard to say one single thing. For me, probably one of the biggest roadblocks that the people that we work with come across is resume formatting. And this is preventing people from getting interviews left, right, and center, whether they're in Chicago, Illinois, or Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. If the applicant tracking system cannot parse the information the way it wants to, right? Let's say you have multiple text boxes on a resume. Maybe you found something on Canva that looked really pretty, but the software doesn't know what to do with it. It can't put the information where it wants to. This can lead to an auto reject. There are plenty of other reasons why this can happen too. One of the most common is showing too much experience. So, I mean, let's be real. Age discrimination is a real thing, regardless of where you live or what you do. For majority of roles, if you show over 20, 25, 30 years experience, that can lead to an auto reject, because the thing to remember is applicant tracking systems aren't just AI agents making decisions left and right. They're big databases and big filtering tools. So if I'm a recruiter and I'm sitting down in front of my computer and I'm booting up the old ATS and I'm trying to fill a job, I might say, okay, anybody who has less than 5 years experience but more than 15, cut them. Anybody who's outside of a certain radius for where we're located, cut them. Anybody who doesn't include these certain keywords and phrases, cut them. The problem that we have is that we're always at the mercy of somebody else at the other end of that computer, right? We don't know what the recruiter's thinking in that exact moment or what that person might be looking for, but we can make an educated guess. And I shouldn't even call it a guess. We can make, we hedge our bets in a sense where I know if I'm dealing with a project manager, some of the baseline keywords I need to include are things like stakeholder management, full project lifecycle. If they're in IT, we talk about IT. If they're in construction, we're in construction. Give the reader what they want or what that recruiter might be looking for. So again, it's hard to say what a single biggest thing that gets a resume rejected. But if you had to hold my feet to the fire, I would say it's formatting. And that's something we worked really hard on with Nari when we were building our resume engine to ensure that, the formatting stays consistent, it's editable, but it's also too, you put it into Talio, Workday, Greenhouse, Google's proprietary ATS, Amazon's proprietary ATS, that it's going to read correctly. And you don't have to worry about, well, I shouldn't say you don't have to worry about because that's not true, but you are less likely to get those good old Dear John emails that say thanks, but no thanks, where clearly nobody's actually read the resume. Okie doke. Moving on. To where I'm located in the UK, we've got Claire in London. She is a marketing director. Right. Claire's question. I have been told my resume looks too senior for roles I actually want to step back into. How do I position experience without looking overqualified? That's an interesting question. So I probably need a bit more context to provide, an accurate response to Claire, but kind of in general, what I would say is, you know, if Claire's been a marketing director, big cross-functional team, she's got indirect reports, she's got direct reports, and maybe she wants to take a step back to something smaller. It's not necessarily going to be how we structure the resume or the CV. It might be more who we're targeting it towards. Because, for example, if you're looking at a large organization, they're getting multiple hundreds, if not thousands of candidates. It's very easy to get overlooked in that situation, regardless of whether you have a referral or something like that. So for somebody like Claire who wants to move away from a more senior role and get into the work she actually wants, then we have to find those places that are providing the work she actually wants so that we can then create a strategy to get there. Now, as far as like technical things with the resume, I mean, if her resume is too senior right now, then we cut anything that is beyond 10 to 15 years because A, that stuff might not be as relevant, and B, we need to kind of streamline that that timeline. Additionally, we can use language to kind of lessen the impact, maybe put the team first as opposed to her. Now, that can be a good thing to do regardless of whether you're looking to take a step back or you're looking to advance. But we can use language to soften things, right? So maybe you originally said you delivered um, a marketing project that enabled the team to increase revenue by blah, blah, blah. Maybe we change that to played a key role towards delivering that. Um, Instead of saying I managed something, I supported this. So there's ways to both strengthen and weaken how we present certain experience within in achievements within the resume. But so much of that depends on people's specific situations, what they're looking for, what industries they're targeting, things like that. So yeah, that was Claire in London. Here we go. We've got Brian in Wisconsin. No state or no city, but we know it's cold in the winter. He's a retail store manager. How long should a resume actually be? I keep hearing different answers. Yup, me too, Brian. And I've been doing this for over a decade. So, and yeah, I've probably said it 100 times before on other webinars, but I'll say it again. I'm a huge nerd at heart. Star Wars was always my jam growing up. And as much as I didn't like the prequels, there's one line that always stuck with me. And that is only the Sith, the bad guys, speak in absolutes. When somebody tells you a resume must be this, must be that, I kind of laugh a little inside because there's really no one size fits all. Now, there's certain guidelines we can look to adhere to for stylistic purposes, things like that. For example, for me, the most I'll typically go on a resume, whether this is somebody in the C-suite or somebody with 10 years experience, something like that. 2 pages, 1,000 words. Now, for me, I live by the guideline of brevity is the soul of wit. Don't waste my time, get to the point. And when most recruiters are only spending 7 to 13 seconds reviewing a resume, we have to be very conscious of that, right? So if I'm throwing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I mean, golly, I had a 22-page CV somebody sent me the other day. Nobody's going to read all that. Even if you're like a top tier candidate, they're going to zip through that stuff because at the end of the day, they just want to talk to you. So for me, I look to stay between 1 and 2 pages. So for a 1-pager, that would be for somebody who maybe just left university, graduated, only had 1 or 2 jobs, because then I don't need 2 pages. I have plenty of real estate to get all the information down that I need to. And sometimes that takes a little bit of clever reformatting. But on the flip side, 1 page is usually not enough real estate for somebody who's been in the game for 10, 12, 15 years, has had 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs. And when I say real estate, I'm using that for the achievements, right? That doesn't mean I want a big block of text talking about responsibilities from a job 20 years ago. No. If there's achievements that are relevant, that align with what we're looking to do going forward, then it makes sense to include it. And that's where that second page can really come in handy. I'm going to mute for a second so I can cough. I do not do well with allergies. I'll tell you what, this happened as an adult too. So I don't know what the hell I'm doing or going through, but hey, we live and learn, don't we? Moving right along. Okay, I've got another one from Saudi Arabia. Nora in Jeddah. Got a few friends in Jeddah. She's a financial analyst who is going to be relocating to the US. Oh, very nice. Her question is, I'm moving from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to the US for my partner's job. Do I apply before I land, or will companies not take me seriously without a US address? Very good question. And I've been getting a lot more of these for going both ways across the pond. So yes, companies will typically it's a crappy thing to say, but yeah, they will take you more seriously with the US address, but that's not really the thing I'm as worried about. So obviously, you need to make sure that you have all the proper visas, stuff like that. I imagine she'd be on a spousal visa, so that wouldn't be an issue. Full rights to work, blah, blah, blah. But you want to make sure you have that secured before you apply, because for most US jobs, there's going to be a button that you're going to have to click during an application that asks, are you authorized to work in the US? And if you don't have that spousal visa yet, I'd probably wait. Now, let's say Nora and her husband have already found a place in the US. Maybe they've already signed the lease. That's their address when they move here. All the visas and stuff are in place, passport stamped. They're going to be leaving in a week or two. I'm good to start applying at that point. Right now, what I might do is look to provide a bit of context in a cover letter, if that's possible, where we talk about making that transition and move so that you're kind of letting people know what's going on. In case any questions pop up, or it's like, oh, well, this person says her address is in Austin, Texas, but all of her jobs are in Saudi Arabia. Like, what's going on there? And whenever recruiters, hiring managers, at least within my network, start to go, like Miss Rachel, I have a 2-year-old, so there's lots of Miss Rachel going on. Not too much, but enough. It really makes them pause. And if people start pausing during these processes, they're usually just going to move on to the next one, right? The easiest explanation is always the most efficient. Now, ideally, what I would want Nora to be doing is trying to build a network within the community she's moving to, right? So religious institutions can be helpful if they have kids and maybe they're planning on getting their kids in the local soccer club or baseball team or something like that. Reach out and say, hey, we're new town. Love to meet some new people in the community and learn about the folks that we're going to be neighbors with. These present opportunities to network into jobs, right? And again, you get to know different parents, the folks around. You're getting multiple things done at the same time. But in today's job market, you have to have, I don't want to say, let me back up. You don't have to have a network, but it's going to make your life so much easier. And I get it. People move to new places. They're starting from scratch. That's okay. We still need to start. Usually once you pick up momentum, it gets a bit easier, right? Once you get that first meeting conversation out of the way, and it can be with a complete stranger. That's fine. I mean, networking can come in the form as, sharing a book that's related to what you do within your industry with a friend or a colleague. That's networking. Referring somebody to a job, that's networking. Just reaching out to folks who maybe do similar jobs that you did in a different country or different state. And you're like, hey, I'm just trying to get a feel for how you guys do things over here. I'd love to take you out for coffee, just ask you some questions. Keep it conversational, low key. We don't do a big ask on the first one anyway, right? It's just about having a nice chat, building that trust with each other. And then if there's an opportunity later down the road to ask for a referral or ask for help, now we've kind of warmed things up, right? So I would definitely say, as far as Nora's situation, if you've got the US address already, go for it. More importantly, well, I shouldn't say more importantly, but equally, I'd also want a US phone number on there as well. So, I mean, that could be as simple as getting a SIM card and having that all squared away. But I can tell you, depending on where you're at, you know, it's sad, but I think most Americans would look at an international code and not know what it means. Because I believe the statistic is like half of Americans actually have a passport. So I would bet even less know that you have to dial different country codes to call overseas, stuff like that. And again, you don't want anything that can gunk up the works. Now, I could be completely wrong with that. I don't want to crap on anybody and say, oh, you don't know how things work in the world. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but just throwing it out there because it might help somebody else. Right. Moving right along. We've got Michael in Chicago. It'd be cool if it was Michael Jordan, but I don't think he lives in, I think he lives in North Carolina. Doesn't matter. Michael is an IT project manager. His question: I have made it to a final round 3 times this year. Oh, I know where this is going. I'm really sorry, Mike. And I got rejected each time. Is that a resume issue at that point or something I'm doing in the room? It's not a resume thing. If you're getting to a final round interview, the resume's fine, right? Absolutely fine. It's only meant to open doors. It's not meant to secure you the job. Now, we would need some more specific information to really get deep into why Michael is hitting a roadblock at that final round interview. However, common things that I see going on, typically at that stage, it's 1 or 2 people that you're competing with, right? It's very neck and neck. So they are really going to be deep diving, getting into the weeds on the technical things. So I would make sure that, wherever your areas of expertise lie, you have plenty of stories to back up. I don't just know how this stuff works. This is how I've used this knowledge, and here are the outcomes. Additionally, as well, it could be delivery during interviews. We really want to be as polished as we can. Now, that doesn't mean everything's going to go perfect. Interviews rarely do. But what it does mean, and I'm doing it on purpose now, is I'm really trying to make this conversational. I'm using my hands when I speak. I'm leaning forward to show interest. I'm making eye contact with each person in the room. I have my chest up, my shoulders back, right? Smiling when I talk, because when I smile, I'm much more engaging when I say these things. Little details make such a big difference. So what I would want to do is hear how Michael delivers these stories and what he talks about. With all that said, sometimes, look, the unfortunate thing is internal candidates are always going to have a leg up. They are the least amount of risk when it comes to the hiring life cycle. They're already onboarded. They already know how things work. So it's very easy for them to transition into the role. Whereas an outside person, they got to learn the culture. They got to onboard, blah, blah, blah. It's going to take longer for them to get started. Now, believe me, we've had plenty of people run into this problem. And as simple as it may sound, the trick is usually to not let it drag your confidence, because confidence is what got you to those 3 final round interviews. And I can tell you, in this market, if you're getting to final round interviews, you are doing something right. I cannot tell you how many conversations I have with people who have been at this for months, if not years, before they come to us and haven't even got a single interview, sent out hundreds of applications and got zilch. So the fact that he's got 3 rounds, he's doing something right. I think it's just minor details we would need to shore up, whether that be delivery, whether that's stories we're telling, and it's no knock on anybody, but look, at the end of the day, interviews are popularity contests, right? They're going to pick who they like the most. And maybe it just wasn't your day in that situation, and that's okay, because there's going to be other opportunities that come down the road. But we can't let that rejection, failure, whatever you want to call it, get in the way of us moving forward, because you're going to have other interviews coming up, and we still have to have that energy. We can't let it jade us, because they're not hiring just a robot to do the job. They're hiring you as a person. So you want to make sure you're coming off authentic, earnest, and engaged, excited to be there. Not like over the top doing backflips, but demonstrating through subtle social cues that I feel confident right now. I'm the right person for this job, and I'm going to tell you why. That's the vibe we want to get to. Cool. Next one. We've got somebody in Berlin. Sandra. She is a UX designer. Very nice. Should my resume look different for applying to US companies versus European ones? Yeah, very good question. Typically, stylistically, no. There's going to be certain nuances. So, for example, in the US and the UK, Europe, whatever, well, we're the only ones who use what's it called? Is it letter paper size? The page sizes are different, put it that way. In the US, they're just a tiny bit shorter and a little bit wider, whereas A4 paper, which is UK, EU, everybody else in the world, it's a little bit taller and a little bit skinnier. So that can mess with the formatting within your resume, depending on whether you're squeezing it, whether you're tightening it. Things can go to third page, stuff like that. So you need to be conscious of that. Spelling is a big difference as well. So in the UK, Europe, they hate the letter Z with a passion. So replace S's with Z's. I'm sorry, change Z's with S's. So standardized, categorize. This is where we would get rid of the Z or the Z to my British friends. And little differences like that make a big, they can have a big impact. On top of that as well, it's tone, right? So in the US, we can be a bit more energetic, a bit more, I don't want to say bombastic, but really let the language show some energy. And it doesn't mean I want to be braggadocious. That doesn't mean I want to be boastful, but we can be a little bit more favorable to ourselves, if that makes sense. Whereas in the UK and Germany, the language is going to be very reserved, very drawn back, because that's not their jam. Being the, hey, look how awesome I am, blah, 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 stereotype that people have of Americans. They would much rather be more subtle, more direct, simpler verbiage, right? And for me overall, and Nari's engine does the same thing. I'm not about using purple prose, flowery language, stuff like that. If anything, I want to strip it down as much as I can. So it's the simplest idea. Like I mentioned before, brevity being the soul of wit. Don't waste my time, get to the point. So if I can do that with as few words as possible, great. For US resumes, I can add a few more bits in there to give it a bit more oomph. Whereas the rest of the world, I'm usually going to be a bit more direct, I guess, put it that way. But good question, though, because like I said, I've got plenty of folks I've been working with who want to make the move from the US abroad. And it's tricky, right? It's a very tricky process, but one that takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a whole lot of perseverance, which, being honest, is pretty much bang standard for the rest of the job market, regardless of whether you want to be in Europe or in the US, Australia, wherever else. Right on, moving forward. I've got David in Columbus, Ohio. Great town, by the way. He's a mid-level accountant considering a move to the UK. Fellow Benedict Arnold after myself. David's question: how do I even start a job search in another country when I don't know if my experience translates or if I need a sponsorship? That was a bit serendipitous, wasn't it? Cool. So UK is a pretty common wish list for Americans. Obviously, they think that's going to be the closest like for like fit. UK and Ireland, just because speak the same language, spin-offs of different cultural things, stuff like that. Now, let's get to the really tough, unfortunate stuff. So the UK is really trying to pull back on overseas hiring and immigration in general. In fact, you're seeing that kind of across the board everywhere right now. So for me, the road forward is going to depend on the situation. If somebody is desperate to move overseas, I mean desperate, like I don't want to be here anymore, I need a new start, I just got to get overseas, my first port of call is going to be looking at graduate programs for universities over here for a few reasons. One, there's your visa sponsorship, right? In the UK, if you're a full-time student, I believe you can work 20 hours a week, and depending on the university, depending on the program, you can stay for a little while afterwards. The idea being you find a role, do a great job, and then the company then applies to sponsor you. So in the UK, companies have to be, excuse me, licensed, registered, whatever, to be able to sponsor visas. So, and they make that database of companies that already are registered very easy to find on uk.gov websites. So what I would recommend for somebody like David is, okay, first off, who the companies I'd be interested in, right? Is this company on the list? Cool. Makes sense to apply. And actually, I got ahead of myself. So first off, we need to look at, okay, is this a role that can even be sponsored? And lately it's been new, which funny enough, it used to be a few years ago in the UK, people could get visas for dog walkers. And as somebody who's been through the UK immigration system, it's so dense and expensive and convoluted. I mean, shoot, I'd have walked somebody's dog if they'd have sponsored my visa. That would have saved me a ton of time and money from getting a spousal visa like I have over here. So we need to look and make sure, and again, this is information you can usually find on a country by country basis. What types of roles can companies sponsor a visa for? It's usually going to be something niche, something very particular. People in software engineering, data engineering, AI, not just AI in general. If you're an AI architect, if you're somebody who's like an AI researcher, things like that, a lot more mobility. Unfortunately, for somebody like David, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, I don't think you would find mid-level accounting roles that somebody would sponsor a visa for. Now, if he came over and did a master's program over here, and then got the necessary qualifications to be an accountant in the UK, so a few different ways you can do that, you might have a shot. Now, overall, if you are looking to move country, you better have visited there at least once. Like, that is such a pet peeve for me. I've had at least half a dozen clients say, "Oh, I want to move to Portugal." "Oh, cool. What parts of Portugal have you enjoyed visiting?" "Oh, I've never been." How the hell do you know you want to live there? Because you saw something cool on Instagram? Like, you're moving your whole life. I can tell you, I'm moving 400 meters down the road. It's a nightmare. There's so many logistics. And then you're going to do that in a different language that you don't speak. Like, this takes real planning, real forethought to make this happen. It is not going to happen quick. It is going to take a long, arduous process. Now, this is the catch 22, and there's no right answer to this one either. You've got a better shot at getting a job if you're in the country, right? Moving somebody from another country for a job, it's expensive, it's time consuming, there's a ton of risk, especially in the political climate we live in now. Companies want an easy road. So unless you have a hyper specific, very in demand skill set with the achievements to back it up, it's going to be really challenging to find that opportunity. Caveats to that. Places like Portugal have a pretty decent digital nomad visa. So for somebody like David, and you can't do this in the UK, but there's other places you can do this in. So if you don't have your heart set on the UK and you got options, David, this might be a route to go. What I would look to do is two ways. One, if I have a fully remote role and I get permission from the company to go abroad, do it. I mean, here's a fun fact. I was once employed by this writing agency a long time ago, and we had a holiday planned in Spain for like a month and a half, and I was already working fully remotely. This was back in 2017-ish. And for whatever reason, my boss was like, "No, I need you in Virginia." No reason at all. Maybe she had one, doesn't matter. Me being me, said, "Yeah, okay. I hear you. I didn't agree to it." And I just ended up going and did the job, and actually ended up getting a bonus while I was there for the good work that I did. So, and hey, look, it gets a lot more complicated because things are different than 10 years ago. But what I am trying to say is that you got to get creative with it. So for somebody like David, I might consider, can you set up your own accountancy firm? Right. And again, this is going to take time, even years maybe, to build up enough clients to where you can move abroad and take those clients with you and just work remotely. And then most digital nomad visas have a certain threshold for salary that you have to hit before you can be eligible for them. I think Portugal's is like 60,000 US. So, not an easy number to hit, but not unsurmountable. So, things to consider, right? I mean, again, if your heart's set on coming to the UK, do like I did, marry a Brit. I'd highly recommend that, especially if my wife's watching this. Um, but more importantly, you know, you've got to build relationships with people in country, or find an organization that is US based but also has UK based operations. I do a lot of work with folks at JP Morgan, and I've come across my fair share of Yanks who have been sent overseas to work there, and they've built lives. And as of right now, if you are living in the UK continuously, you're sponsored of the visa. um, After 5 years you get indefinite leave to remain, after which you can then apply for citizenship. Now, that depends a lot on the type of visa and all that stuff, but there are routes to doing it. And when I'm working with younger clients these days, and we're talking about long-term planning, one of the things I ask them is, do you want mobility? Yes, then we need to get you a second passport. Having that ability to cross borders, work legally, things like that, you can shift with how the market shifts. Being stuck in one place makes it really tough, right? Because you're just stuck in that market. Having that second passport's a game changer. Now, it's not easy to get, but if you can do it, it is worth the time. It is worth the investment. Put it that way. Cool. Let's keep on rolling here. We've got Karen in Florida. She is an administrative assistant. Karen's question: do cover letters even matter anymore, or is it a waste of time? I was actually talking to the last client I talked to before I started the stream, asked that same question. For me, I'm seeing about maybe 50% of jobs that people are going to go for will actually want a cover letter. Again, it's going to depend on the industry, it's going to depend on the job, it's going to depend on where you're located. For me, the cover letter is an opportunity to talk about the why you want to work for this organization. Is it their mission, their vision, their culture, their product? It doesn't matter. As long as you can define why you're applying, you're now positioning yourself as somebody who's looking for the job, as opposed to just any old job. Because who would you rather hire? Somebody who is presenting information that shows that, hey, I can solve your very specific problems that you've defined. This is why I'm excited to be applying for you. Looking forward to hear back. Or the person that just ran their cover letter through ChatGPT, says the same stuff over and over again, sends the same cover letter to everybody else, no customization. I'll let you figure out who's going to do better in the market, because I don't think you need me to tell you. As far as cover letters go, I mean, it's better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. And if it's optional, always do it. And it doesn't need to be anything massive. One page, 200 to 300 words tops. Short, punchy paragraphs, get in, get out. Mention the company name and job title at least once, twice ideally. And then lastly, you need to address it to someone specific. And I can already hear people saying, well, how do I find that out? There's a few different ways you can find that out. One, LinkedIn's going to be your best friend on that. The job description actually is going to be even better. Reason being is that when people write out these job descriptions, they often include who you'd be reporting to. So if I know I'm reporting to the VP of Finance, I can then go and look and see, oh, who's the VP of Finance at this company? It's John Doe. Dear Mr. Doe, blah, 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 blah. Sounds like a South Park character. That's way better than to whom it may concern or dear hiring team. Within my network, you get points for trying, right? You put the effort forward. You tried to address it to a recruiter, a hiring manager, a headhunter. You might not have got it right, and that's not the end of the world. But showing that you actually tried, that can make a world of a difference. So let's see. Oh, and I missed one in the chat. Oh, this is a former client, Bayader. She said, "Thank you, Ryan, for helping me in my career journey. I'm happy to share that I've moved to health holding company in the government sector." That is amazing. Well done. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. That was really nice to hear, and I'm glad to hear about the success as well. So, yeah, please feel free to reach out when you're ready to update the CV. Be more than happy to take care of that for you. But that's fantastic news. So glad you shared that. Um, I'm going to put something in the chat now. It is a link to a Google Doc that has some instructions about how you can track down hiring managers, how you can find that person's email address, and then some templates you can play with to reach out directly. What we're looking to do, regardless of whether we are addressing the cover letter directly to somebody or we are trying to reach out, connect with hiring managers directly, it needs to be personalized, and the focus is on starting a conversation. Okay. Applications can go one of two ways. You either get the interview or you don't. A conversation can go many different places. We could be planting seeds that we cultivate 6 months down the road. It could lead to a hiring manager saying, "Hey, I don't have anything for you right now, but our sister company is building out a new team. Let me get you connected over there." These are the types of things that propel us forward in the job market, not sending out endless applications and just kind of hoping for the best. But when it comes to cover letters, try to address it as best you can. But at the same time, they are kind of going the way of the dodo bird. So not necessarily something you have to worry about a ton, but just good to be cognizant of. Let's see. I've got Abdullah in Riyadh, another Saudi Arabian client. He's an operations lead. Okay. So, yeah, a lot of roles here are filled through personal connections. Tell me about it. Before they're ever posted, how do I compete with that as an outsider to that network? A couple of things. One, you have to get involved in those conversations. And where are those conversations happening? In-person events, typically. Workshops, roundtables, conferences, expos, training opportunities, public speaking events, things like that. You have to be around people who live in your world, basically, right? Who do what you do, who speak the same language, so to speak. And I'm not saying like English to English, Arabic to Arabic. I'm saying like, oh, you're somebody in tech. I know how to relate to you because we've been through the same stuff together. The whole focus is on, again, starting conversations, building relationships. That is the crux of any successful job search strategy. I wish we could deliver somebody a CV every time that will open up doors, no matter what, without lifting a finger. That's not realistic. Yes, our resume engine will develop a fantastic resume or CV for you, but we have to have those relationships to get it in front of the right people. Now, there are other ways to crack into that space. For me, sharing thought leadership content on LinkedIn does many jobs. One, it's going to promote visibility on LinkedIn. If you're somebody who can post regularly, when I say regularly, once a week, nothing more than that, and share real stories, actionable information about, hey, big problem we had at work. This is how we fixed it. Here's the outcome. Maybe this is something your team can use. These become the crux of your interview stories, right? This is what you're going to talk about as and when you get to sit down in front of somebody. So it gives you a chance to really hone in on what's the important part of the story, what isn't as important. Cool. But LinkedIn's algorithm rewards stuff like that. It rewards commenting on posts. Anything that you can do to keep people on the platform longer, it's going to make sure that you're easier to find. So by sharing stories and knowledge, and I'm not talking about the aspirational crap like, oh, this is what walking my dog taught me about HR operations. No, it's about what you've experienced, how that's impacted you as a professional, how you've solved these various problems. Maybe you have a different approach or a different take, and then end on the outcome. Cannot stress that enough, right? You can talk about all the aspirational stuff you want, or you can give me generic stuff about, hey, this is how you would run accounting. You're not telling me anything I can't just find with a Google search. I can't use Google or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to know your stories unless you publish them somewhere. So the point is, get this stuff out there. And there's ways to do it that isn't cringe. There's ways to do it that isn't overly promotional. Sometimes you have the courage to start. And, one of our upcoming webinars for, Nari subscribers is going to be specifically on how to share thought leadership on LinkedIn, how to write it, how to come up with the ideas, how to organize it, best times to post, things like that. Especially for my more senior clients, that does more for getting interviews than any amount of applications. Because at a certain level, more and more companies are hunting. They're going to find that talent. It's exactly what Abdullah was talking about. They're being filled through personal connections. So the people who are making decisions, the recruiters, the headhunters on those initial candidates, you've got to get on their radar. Whether that's starting conversations with them, whether that's them finding you on LinkedIn, whether that's just bumping into them at a networking event, a conference, a workshop, whatever. That's how we crack that code. And it's not limited to Saudi either. That is everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world. Because you got to think, somebody who has hired people, it's a nightmare. It's like you get bombarded with candidates and you want to answer everybody. Believe me, I've tried. But if I know, oh, my business director, Laura, she recommended this person to do this type of job, of course I'm going to go with her recommendation. She's somebody I trust. Whereas somebody applies off the street, we don't know them, know nothing about them, there's no trust established. So having a little bit of trust in place goes such a long way towards cracking into those circles. Man, allergies killing, but we're almost there. What do we got? About 13 minutes? We'll press on. We can do it. I've got so many questions, so we'll have to save some for next time. Let's see. From Rachel in Colorado. She's a customer success manager. What is actually the best way to follow up after an interview without seeming pushy? I mean, what I usually recommend as far as a follow-up is 24 to 36 hours, right? If you're sending that thank you note the minute you leave that interview, coming off a little thirsty, coming off a little desperate. And when it comes to thank you notes, you don't need to be over the top with it, right? It can be as simple as, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation, enjoyed talking about XYZ. Looking forward to hearing next steps. Have a nice day. Short, sweet, to the point, right? We're not asking for anything. We're just reiterating how much we appreciated that person's time. And we're looking forward to hearing next steps, reiterating that I'm still interested. One of the things, it's been one of the more bizarre things I've found and even kept track of for as long as I've been doing this. For final round interviews, if you want to put the cherry on top, the coup d'etat, the really hammer home the fact that you want this job without coming off as too pushy, send that thank you note as a handwritten note by registered mail. A few things there. One, when was the last time you got a letter from a friend or a family member? When was the last time you got mail that wasn't junk or bills or things you didn't want? So when we get something different, ooh, I'm going to pay attention. Then you hand wrote it. That takes time. That takes a little penmanship. That takes effort. Excellent. Shows you really care. You send it by registered mail. The person who's receiving it has to sign for it. You get a little text message alerting you of that. Now you know they got it in their hands. They actually read it. I think I've had like a dozen clients do this for fun around interviews. Every single one got the job. That could be a massive coincidence. Could have been luck. Or it could have just showed that, hey, I'm the right person for this gig, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. You got to find the best way for you to communicate that. That can be subtle. That can be direct. It's going to depend on your audience as well. Some people appreciate subtlety. Some people appreciate more direct. Kind of got to read the room, which is why it's my most hated word, but the situation always depends on, I mean, the action that we take, it always depends on the situation. I wonder if that's why Depends, the adult diaper company, picked that name, because it's like, ugh, depends. I don't know. I'm being silly. All right, moving on. I got Tom in New York. He's a senior engineer. Don't know if that means IT engineer, civil engineer. Interviewing for roles in Dubai and the UK. Good for you for getting in Dubai. I thought they closed it down, but all right. How do I handle salary conversations when I'm interviewing across different countries with completely different payment orders? Yeah, man, you're talking about way different tax situations and stuff like that. So the bad news for Tom is that he's still going to have to file US taxes regardless of where he lives. As Americans, it doesn't matter where we live. We still have to file. You can get a lot of trouble if you don't. You also have to file something called an F bar if you have any bank accounts that have over $10,000 in it. Show you're not laundering money or trying to hide it from people. It's paying neck, but them's the rules, so we follow them. Now, when it comes to Tom's question, so I need to look at total compensation. All right, what is going into this? Am I getting a car? Am I getting health insurance? Are they paying for my apartment? Are they paying for my travel overseas? We have to get a full sum of what that compensation package looks like. From there, we need to benchmark against the cost of living, right? So Dubai is going to be pretty expensive. London, it's obviously going to be pretty expensive. But where I live in Norwich in the UK, pretty affordable, right? You know, it's not London, but we're also too not paying $4,000 a month for, you know, a 1-bedroom closet, right? You need the whole story, you need the whole picture. And then more importantly, I would think, okay, what type of life is this salary going to get me wherever I end up? Right? Because, you know, I mean, you'd be surprised, man. 100K in the UK, it won't go as far as you think in like a city like London, right? Even with the exchange rates the way they are. Whereas 100K out, you know, where I am in the country a bit, you buy a mansion. I shouldn't say a mansion, but you'd be living pretty large. So honestly, it comes down to lifestyle, right? What is this company giving you? And how is that going to impact your lifestyle? Because it might be a situation where, you know, like in the UK, we have the NHS, universal healthcare, has its ups, has its downs, like anything. But if I know, you know, okay, I'm moving to the UK, they're going to pay for private insurance. So, you know, you're not stuck in A&E for 12 hours. That can be a big bonus, right? Especially if you've got existing health issues, things like that. Whereas if you would rather be in sunnier, warmer climate with, you know, ultra luxury surroundings, things like that, maybe you focus on Dubai. So it's less about pay terms. And for me, it's more about what is that life, how is that pay going to impact my lifestyle? That's the real question I would want to ask. Money is not the only thing. It's a lot of it, but it's not the only thing. Cool. Let's see here. I've got Miss Linda in Georgia. She is a nurse transitioning to healthcare admin. Oh, I have a family full of nurses. Let's see. Is it bad to apply for jobs outside my current field with no direct experience in it? Very tricky. I feel like before COVID, it was much easier to make career changes because there was still a lot of the human element involved in the process where somebody's going to sit down and actually look through paper applications or resumes. And you get to know people a bit quicker. I mean, a bit better that way than going through applicant tracking systems and AI agents and chatbots and stuff like that. So you have to be able to tell the story about why you made that transition and how your achievements and accomplishments in nursing are going to make you better as a healthcare administrator. Ideally, Linda would have gone through some training, qualifications, certifications for that stuff. And we want to make sure to highlight those early and often on top of the, achievements that align with it. And we have to be careful about how much experience we show, because if she's shifting over to a healthcare admin, unless it's an internal role and she has spoken to that hiring manager, department head directly, she's still having to go through the same line as everybody else. So I would probably cut back a lot of the experience that I talk about with nursing, to try to make her closer to that, not entry level candidate, but maybe a couple steps up from that. Because if she's been a nurse, I don't know how long she's been a nurse, but let's say she's been a nurse for 20 years. Um, yeah, great experience, but we can't list 20 years experience if we're looking for like a mid-level, entry-level healthcare admin job. You're probably going to get pre-screened real quick. So it takes a bit of creativity to do that. But I mean, as far as, is it bad to apply? No. The only thing you have to lose when you apply for a job is time. So if you have time, go for it. But instead of applying, like I said, I would rather start conversations. I would reach out to healthcare organizations and try to start conversations directly with people who are making decisions. Use your existing network, use alumni networks, use, my parents are very active in their church and they have, you know, weekly different groups and stuff like that. You'd be surprised how many people end up in new jobs by just chatting with people in those groups. And it doesn't have to be just religious stuff. It can be social clubs, it can be sports clubs, things like that. So again, talk to people. Simple as it sounds, go talk to people about this stuff, because that's where opportunities come from, not just doom scrolling through LinkedIn and clicking apply 100 times. Not saying Linda does that, but just for folks in general. All right. I think I've got time for one more question. We'll go with Emma in Manchester. She is a senior product manager. I keep getting told I interview well, but still don't get offers. What could actually be going wrong if the interview itself seems fine? See, that's the tricky part. We often don't get really good feedback after interviews and things like that, because companies are petrified of saying the wrong thing and then getting sued for discrimination or whatever else. So I think, I mean, it's not too dissimilar from that earlier question I answered before about getting to that final round interview and still not cracking the code. If the interview seems fine, then that tells me you were conversational, you were engaging, but the stories weren't resonating. So maybe we try a different approach with how we tell them. So for example, most people use STAR as a framework for answering things. So situation, task, action, result. Or they focus too much on theory and say, well, this is what I would do. This is what I might do. This is what I have done. I'm much more focused on give me specific examples. So without knowing, what Emma's interview style is like, my first port of call would be, oh, maybe you should try CARL instead of STAR. So CARL stands for context, action, result, learning. So you follow that same pattern of STAR, but then you tack on that learning part at the end. Because what you're doing is you're showing instead of telling. If I told you I have a continuous improvement mindset, maybe you buy it, maybe you don't. But if I show you through the stories I tell, through the impact I've made as a professional, you're much more likely to get there on your own. And that's what I need. I need somebody to buy into my ideas, not just have them thrust upon them. Or there's start story. So we follow the same pattern of start, but then we add the T at the end, the tie-in. So you explain the story and then say, well, this is how this applies to your particular situation. And we still want to keep those responses around 90 seconds to 2 minutes, which is not easy, but I train people to do it every day. And that's something we do on Nari as well, whether it be small group sessions or one of our weekly webinars includes interview best practices, stuff like that. So more than welcome for you to join us there. So yeah, think that gives us a good place to stop with Miss Emma. I'm losing my voice anyway, so I'm sure everybody's ready to close up on that. Appreciate everybody who's joined us. So we had a big uptick of viewers at one point, so happy to see that. Besides that, I'll drop some links in the chat to Nari, as well as a coupon code that people can use if they want to test out the platform. Besides that, people are always welcome to reach out directly if you've got questions about this stuff. We're putting out webinars pretty much every week on different subjects within the job market. I'll be doing some AMAs, all sorts of stuff. So appreciate everybody's time today, and best of luck in the market. We'll see you next time.